Hi, everybody, and welcome to Building Bridges for America's Saturday night Dem-a-Palooza event. Tonight is a very special event. We have two very special guests. We have Sheena King, who is running for the Texas State House, and we have Jess Piper, who is running for the Missouri State House. Thank you so much for being here tonight, ladies. Our topic tonight is abortion, and we're going to jump right into that. But first, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Building Bridges, who we are, and what we do. Building Bridges for America was formed after Pete Buttigieg dropped out of the 2020 presidential race, and he asked all of his supporters and everyone to get behind all the down ballot candidates and Joe Biden, and Building Bridges was formed. Building Bridges has a mission, a vision, and values. Our mission is that we are guided by the principles of servant leadership, and we mobilize and empower networks of relational grassroots organizers equipped to support campaigns and causes based in progressive values. And our values are that we recognize that effort adds value regardless of the result. And we are committed to the development of a broad and inclusive coalition. And we conduct our actions and are informed by the legacy of Pete Buttigieg's 2020 campaign rules of the road. And our vision is a just and equitable democracy that is safeguarded by an informed and engaged electorate where everyone is valued and belongs. Now, everything that Building Bridges does, we do through these lenses because we strive to inform and engage ourselves in the work of delivering racial equity, bridging the rural and urban communities, reforming our democracy, and creating a sense of belonging. Now, Building Bridges for America does lots of things. We have trainings, we have programs, and we have discussion groups. We just wrapped up our discussion on the Some of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone. That is our book club. It is so fun and engaging. We bring in candidates, we bring in guest speakers, and we discuss the book chapter by chapter. We are going to be announcing our next book in the next few weeks, so be on the lookout for that. In the middle of the screen, these are our courses and our trainings. Building Bridges for America offers 11 different trainings, and each one of those trainings comes with its own workbook. Everything from unlocking your political power to share your story so you can flip votes, conversations that break through, making the hard act, popping that disinformation bubble, because we all know fighting disinformation is now a 24-hour-a-day job. So yeah, we have all of these different courses and trainings. And then of course we have our days of action. And those are our postcarding events, which is like our Games for Change, and our Lights Camera Action event, where we watch movies at the Lights Camera Action, and we play games while we write postcards at Games for Change. And we also invite our candidates for town halls on that Sunday event. Now, as you can see, our class of 2022 endorsed candidates is deep and wide. I believe we have 30 endorsed candidates right now. And two of those candidates are here tonight. How lucky are we? But these candidates represent over 20 states, municipal offices, board of commissioners, board of supervisors, selectmen, city council, mayor, state house, secretary of state, governor, and U.S. Congress and U.S. Senate. So we do a lot here at Building Bridges. And how do we support these candidates? We text bank for them. We phone bank for them. We write postcards for them. We also have town hall Q&As. And the links to all of these events are over in the chat, so you can sign up for those events. Now you can give us a follow on social media at Build Bridges, the number 4 America, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And of course, you can check us out at our website at buildingbridges4America.com. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put those questions over into chat. Now, the reason that we are here tonight. So the topic tonight is abortion, and I am so grateful that we have these two guest hosts with us. And I'm just going to touch base on where we are as a country with our abortion rights. 507 anti-abortion restrictions have been introduced in 39 states, emboldened by the confidence that the U.S. Supreme Court will disintegrate abortion rights later this year. Conservative lawmakers are rushing to introduce and pass anti-abortion legislation. In 2022 alone, 39 state legislatures have filed more than 230 bills restricting abortion access, a significantly higher number. While not all of them will become law, more than likely, more than ever, throwing organizations that help these people access into total chaos. These abortion laws restricting women's access to reproductive rights do not stop abortions. It creates an unsafe environment for women accessing illegal abortions. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but worldwide, 25 million women have unsafe abortions that occur every single year. Most of those occur in the developing world. Unsafe abortions result in complications with about 7 million women a year, and unsafe abortions will also be one of the leading causes of deaths during pregnancy and childbirth, to the effect of 5 to 13% of all deaths in this period. So tonight we're going to focus on 2 states, because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So Texas has some of the most severe anti-abortion laws passed, and to advocate for the state of Texas, we welcome Sheena King. She is running for candidate of the Texas State House in District 62 and Missouri, which is why we have all gathered here tonight to stand up and fight against the current anti-abortion law that is in committee. And to advocate for the state of Missouri, we welcome Jess Piper. And she is running for candidate, she is running for the Missouri House District 1. And I want to thank you guys so very much for being here. And with that, we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to listen to a song. And as we do that, over in the chat, the letter for you, the sample letter for you guys to write, the leaders in the Missouri House to stop this bill is over in the chat, along with the people that you need to write and their addresses. So thank you so much for being here, everybody, and enjoy this first song.
While Nessa is getting that set up, if you for some reason can't open any of the links, please mention that in the chat and I'll see if I can fix it.
Country today, and I don't really feel like they have the right to take more than they already have from us away. This ain't about that, or has it really been all along? No, this ain't about that. If you wanna focus on right and wrong, shouldn't schools have better sexual education or contraception information for once? Only 24 states require sex ed, so more than half of US teens need a condom. The problem's abortion. Focus on what's going on, it is an abortion. If you wanna focus on right and wrong, this is my body, this is my choice, a painful decision, but you aren't gonna steal my voice. It isn't just morals, and it's not black and white. We will govern our bodies, it's our legal right. Let's make the fight. Did you know that many think the morning after pill is an atrocity that should be banned? Maybe men should get vasectomies and get them reversed once they find a woman who'll take their hands. This ain't about that. This is all about what's legally life, what's an issue of law is turning into one of moral strife. Life is an equivalent based on definition, you must account for experience. And remember that a fetus requires another body to give them their sustenance. The courts can't force us to donate organs or blood of our own. This is no exception. can face our repercussions alone. This is my body, this is my choice, a painful decision, but you aren't gonna steal my voice. It isn't just morals, and it's not black and white. This is my body, and it's my legal right. Listen. Doctors will be scared of making any incision, which means they won't be acting on their best medical decision should they just make an attempt, which is not defined. They face 99 years of prison down the line. And yet let's say they don't perform because they're scared of spending time. Say the patient gets sick and sues the doctor for their crime. This all affects the healthcare system for you and me, facing higher doctors' bills to balance liability. And everybody's terrified and everybody's ill. Meanwhile, thousands could use help just getting themselves on the pill. There are way too many babies and the population's growing. We're running out of water and the rate of death is slowing. Adoptions are hard, the foster system's saturated, but an 11-year-old's birth just because she's impregnated by an uncle or rando who held her down and raped her. She was too afraid to tell, and it didn't show till 3 months later. And now she has the blessing to ruin her life and her physique, while to carry on the genes of men who violate the weak. I don't think so. For every woman who's ever had to get on her knees, stand up. For every woman who's ever had to say please, stand up. Stand up. This is my body, this is my choice, a painful decision. You aren't gonna steal my voice. It isn't just morals, and it's not black and white. This is our bodies, and there are legal rights. Let's make the fight. Oh, let's make the fight. Let's make the fight.
Woo, that was powerful. Oh my goodness. Okay. First we are going to start out and we're going to have a conversation with Sheena King, who again is running for the Texas State House, District 62. And
61.
61, pardon me. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. If you guys have questions for Sheena, please feel free to put them into the chat and we will get to those here in just a few moments. So Sheena, two Texas abortion advocacy groups are trying a new legal strategy to strike down the state's restrictive abortion law, which has proven very difficult to challenge in court so far. They have filed 4 lawsuits, 2 in federal court, challenging the law's constitutionality. But rather than focusing on abortion itself, the suits argue that the law is unconstitutional in other ways, violating rights to due process, free speech, and equal protection under the law. Given how difficult these abortion laws are to overturn statewide, if Roe versus Wade is overturned and there is an increase in abortion restrictions, what do you think the impacts on Missouri will be based on what you've seen in Texas?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. I appreciate being able to share this space and this time. This is such an important topic, so thank you. I want to start with that. So Missouri, as the young lady just mentioned on the song, fight, fight, fight. If it happens to be overturned, Missouri is in for a very hard time. There are women who are suffering. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of danger. There's fear. It's untenable. It's really a sad and scary place where we are right now in Texas. And I would definitely encourage you guys to fight. I know you're having a letter writing, maybe some texting, some phoning, all of that. Do as much as you can. We don't want anyone else to have to suffer through what's happening right now in Texas, both the professionals and the women, right? There's pain all over. I've heard horror stories about folks just having to, in secret, almost like encode try and signal to a woman what she should do, what her options even are, finding herself in this situation. And that's just not healthcare. And that's what this is about. This is about healthcare. This is about options. This is about getting the right information out about what all of us deserve, quite frankly.
Yes, thank you so much for that. So why is it important for us to increase the awareness about reproductive rights?
Yeah, so again, that song hit on so many topics. It was amazing. It was beautifully done. But truly, it's not just the abortion part of it. We need to talk about rights. And part of our human rights is healthcare. So we all need to advocate for that. Privacy of that as well. In Texas, all of the craziness that's happening is really putting a lot of privacy things at risk as well. You mentioned the lawsuits, and they're trying to address some of the things that aren't, I guess, put to the side based on SB 8. So it was written in such a very crazy way to where there's no way you can overturn or hold any one individual liable. So it makes it very squishy and difficult, and unnecessarily so. So we definitely want to ensure that Missouri and everyone else has the knowledge and information, the right knowledge and information, starting with sexual education. Then we talk about what are some preventative options to folks. So let's talk about, before it even gets to the point of abortion, let's make it accessible. Let's get the information out. Let's talk about it and stop trying to stigmatize it and make it shameful. Because it's not. It's a natural part of life. Sex happens. So we need to talk about it. We need to get real about it. And we need to make sure that people understand what is possible and what the options are, so that they can make the best choices for their families. And that includes contraceptive.
Yes, I agree. Christy in the chat just said that forced birth makes us cattle. And that is such
chattel,
yeah.
which is
Slavery.
It makes us not human. It's what makes us objects.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So there is total disregard for the actual woman who is in the situation, who will have to then bear all of the other components of this, right? Socioeconomic, economic, mental, physical. There's so many other pieces that are just not even considered or placed to the side. We'll just say that.
Thank you for that so much. So how can legislatures make a real difference in people's lives when it comes to reproductive health?
Well, I think it starts with exactly what the young lady just mentioned about, right, seeing people as people, treating people in the way that we give rights, not take away rights. I can't help but think, I was born in 1970. Then Roe v. Wade, which is the floor of all of this. This is definitely not the high watermark, but it was the basic piece of all of this, happened in 1973. And my daughter now, she was born with more rights than myself or any of my ancestors. However, now some of those rights are being reversed. And I want her to continue to live in a world where rights are given, not taken away. And so instead of focusing on abortion, we need to talk about policies. We need to talk about what are the things to help humans have sustainable lives, have thriving lives. So legislators really need to be about trying to make things better for our constituents and our states and our country, as opposed to restricting them. So we really need to talk about what are some policies that we can put in place that's going to help people, not harm them.
Good point. Good point. Thank you so much for that. So you're running for office down in Texas for the Texas State House. Why is this issue important to you personally? And what will you do if you were elected as state representative regarding reproductive health issues?
Yes, so I am running for a lot of things, and that word "for" is very important. I'm running for the right to choose. I'm running for women. I'm running for our future. And for me, it is personal. It's deeply personal. Not only was this by far the worst legislative session in Texas, because so many things were taken away. So many rights, so many human rights were taken away, and nothing was actually given to help the people of Texas. So I'm running for so many of those things, but it's deeply personal to me for a number of reasons. I will start by saying I had to make the difficult decision to have an abortion. I did. And for folks to say that they understand and that this is, not a big deal, or it's, people are taking it lightly, it is not a light thing to take. I am making this a public statement right here on your platform today, because I think we have to destigmatize it. We have to be okay talking about it, because it happens, and it happens to more women. Someone you know, someone you love has had to face that difficult decision. And we really need to make sure that we are supportive, and we need to just find a way to humanize all of this. There are real people that are suffering because of the harm that is being put in place. So I am running to make a personal difference, to bring my lived experience to a place where those decisions are being made. I want to ensure that we have more voices at the table, not less. And right now, we don't have a lot of representation in Texas to be able to lend voice to that. So there are a lot of women like me who are fired up and running for this very reason. And we want to make sure that a woman's right to choose is between her and her family and her doctor, not anyone else's. We need to make sure that they get their hands off of our uterus.
Thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable and sharing your truth. I as well had to make that difficult decision. I was faced with a health issue, and it was my life or the life of my baby, and I chose life. And it is one of the most difficult decisions, and it should not be between anyone but you, your family, and your doctor. So thank you so very much for that. So we have some questions coming in into the chat for you. Tracy wants to know, how do we effectively contest these efforts without falling onto deaf ears because of culture wars?
Wow, that's a great question. And I wish I could tell you I have a magic solution and the answer. Obviously, in Texas, we were not successful. We had lots of marches, lots of protests, lots of people who went to the Capitol. We wrote letters, we contacted our senators. But you know what? I would do it all again. I would do it all again. So you have to continue, because it's making public record. There are so many times that folks will say that, well, no one's harmed by it because I didn't hear anything or I didn't know anything. We need to make sure it gets documented. So please, your letter writing is so vitally important. Calling, vitally important. All of that has to be documented. That is part of our legislative process. They have to make record of it. So continue to do that. Continue to make noise loud and proudly out wherever you need to do that. Because again, that brings attention, right? That helps neighbors, that helps companies. Companies also are stepping up, and they're starting to hear some of this. So bring as much attention, as much noise, as much awareness to the problem as possible, so that people cannot say they didn't know. And then finally, I would just say, let's continue to support Supreme Court justices, right? Making sure that we're promoting people who actually understand the values that we're trying to aspire to have, for all of us to have our liberties and freedoms. So I don't have a magic answer. I don't have one answer. I would say continue the work that you guys are already doing. It is making a difference. It may not seem like it, but we have to continue. We cannot lose this fight. I know we have short amount of time, but that's probably all I can say on that right now.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that answer. Which companies can we support for their support, and which can we punish for opposing with our dollars?
I would say do your research, right? Just like we talk about environmental, sustainable governance companies, we also need to be thinking about companies who have the values of women's right to choose as well. So do your research. Companies are starting to get a little bit more transparent, and we need to continue to see them become so. I know Planned Parenthood has put out some information about some companies who have stepped up, and they are not only giving some of their employees additional time because of the restrictions, like if they need to take time off to travel to get a safe abortion, they are giving them that time. There's a couple of companies I think I saw earlier. Oh, let's see. I'll just say Planned Parenthood, right? So they have a list of, I think, about 6 or 7 companies that are actually positively helping to try and ease some of the burdens that have been put in front of us. As far as the punishing companies, I would say similarly, do your research and let's challenge companies. Ask. We need to ask questions and start making sure that they understand the power of our pockets, the power of our dollars, because women, we are the supermajority. And if we start to bring noise, both financially to these companies, as well as noise to our elected officials, we can make a difference, but it's going to be the collective. We all have to be in this fight together. So as much as we can, let's continue to get people aware of what's happening.
Thank you so much, Sheena. I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight and to answer these questions. We are going to take a break and we are going to listen to another song, but we are going to come back to you in a few minutes. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. All right, give me just a moment here and we are going to listen to another song.
Remember Katie White? She jumped the fence that night. She ran away in tears. Your sister drank her beer.
We were just 18. The older girls could be so mean. I was talking just to talk. You were still in shock.
And all I could think to say is everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be alright.
I'm on your side.
I'm on your side.
Are you feeling well? Are you gonna tell? How long have you known? Did you tell him? Does he know? You knew there was something wrong. Just a few weeks along. You told him and he broke it off. And the money won't cover the cost. And all I could think to say is everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be alright. I'm on your side. I'm on your side. No one has to know. The scars won't even show. At least that's what I thought. No bigger than a baby. No bigger than a baby. No bigger than a baby bird. No bigger than a baby bird.
Do you think God still sees me coming out of this twilight sleep?
I'm not sure who I am, staring into my empty head. And all I could think to say is everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be alright. I'm on your side. I'm on your side.
All right. So moving on with the event, I would like to introduce my co-host, Riley, and she is going to be having a conversation with our second guest tonight, Jess Piper, who is running for the Missouri State House.
Hello. All right. So, all right. Sorry. Jess, just to get started, do you want to just explain where your district is in Missouri?
Yeah, so I'm in District 1, which is the very top northwest corner of Missouri, right on the Iowa line.
All right. Thank you. And then can you explain, just as your knowledge is, the history of threats to abortion access in Missouri?
Deep and wide, a lot. As many people may not know, that Missouri has been under a GOP supermajority for 20 years now. And so we had a Democratic governor. I think his term ended in 2016, but that's the last person that we've really had at the state level. I'm represented from my sheriff, coroner, all the way up to my US senators, all by Republicans. And so the attack has been fierce. They passed a complete ban in 2018, which was overturned. Even in the cases of rape and incest. But as you guys sort of alluded to, it's really ramped up in the last couple of years.
Yes. And then how does effective, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if very many people are in the group at that point, but in Missouri, there's only one abortion clinic, and that is in St. Louis. And you are probably about as far from St. Louis as possible.
5 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, you are, because the southwest corner would be closer. How does that lack of access affect people in your district?
It impacts us greatly. And also it's worth noting that Missouri doesn't have sex ed in our curriculum. So we are abstinence only. So you can imagine that makes for some difficult situations. We also are inundated with pregnancy clinics, the fake clinics that, lure young folks in and, pretty much force them into giving birth. So it's been difficult. We have, if you want to talk about like the most extreme legislation, we have Florida, we have Texas, and Missouri's like, hold my beer, because here I come. I mean, it's bad. In 2018, we found out that the Department of Health was keeping record of women's menstruation patterns, women who had visited the Planned Parenthood. And so they were trying to keep track of every woman's period to know if she later gave birth. And that was through the state health department. We now have a bill that you mentioned that's coming through by Mary Elizabeth Coleman that actually drew a lot of the characteristics of the Fugitive Slave Act. They are trying to keep women in Missouri from fleeing into other states to get abortion care. And as Riley said, it's because there's only one clinic and it's in St. Louis. And in 2020, there were 39 surgical abortions in the entire state of Missouri, 39. So women were fleeing to Illinois. All you had to do was cross the river and there's a massive clinic there. And so this bill is meant to keep women from fleeing into Illinois to seek abortion care. And they're serious about that. It sounds like dystopian literature, but it's very much fact here. We had Representative Seitz introduce a bill criminalizing ectopic pregnancies for women. When he was questioned on the floor by a Democratic representative who said, "Do you know what the treatment is for ectopic pregnancy?" He said, "No." So he admits to not understanding how any of this works. And so when we think of extreme abortion legislation, we should think of Missouri.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to mute notifications on another app. so that it won't ding in my ears. I'm asking you these questions. All right. So this was actually gonna be my last question, but because you brought it up, I'll bump it up a little. As you said, Missouri does not have comprehensive sex ed. It's abstinence only. It also is not required to be medically factual at all. So, for instance, I grew up in Missouri. I was told blatant lies about sexual health. And the purpose was really to scare students away from engaging in sexual activity. How will you address these types of issues in the Missouri legislature?
I would absolutely, and just to say what Sheena said as well, I am absolutely for reducing abortions. I mean, if women don't need a procedure, let's keep them from having a procedure. But that comes from things that Republicans are actively fighting against, like easy access to contraception, over-the-counter contraception, access to sex ed, a livable wage, accessible healthcare, affordable healthcare. All of these things result in people being okay with being pregnant and feeling like they can support a child and support themselves. So those are the things that I would address in the Missouri legislature. It's they shut down. They don't want to hear things about women's bodies. They just want to pass laws against women's bodies. And so it's going to take lots of folks going to Jeff City and turning this around. Right now, the state house is made up of 24% women. Well, there's 51% of women in Missouri. So we have an absence there. And plus we are in a super majority and we have Democrats not running in 84 seats that are just going to go to Republicans if we don't get someone on the ballot by Monday. So all of these things just, snowball into something that we can't control anymore. And I think my position is always telling people what's going on, which is why I'm on TikTok so often to say, this is what is happening. You may not realize until it hits you in the face, but this is what they're doing and this is how they're doing it. And so educating people on, what is actually happening down in Jeff City.
All right. So abortion access is fundamentally an issue of health equity. And there are a lot of other issues of health equity in Missouri. How would you address those?
Well, in rural Missouri, we've had 14 rural hospitals close in the last decade. We just found out that there were 2 more rural hospitals that are about to close. I heard a story about a woman whose dad was in the ICU and you can't stay overnight in the ICU. And she said every 4th car was a rural Missourian sleeping in their car, waiting to go the next morning to see their loved one in the ICU because it's too expensive to stay overnight. And we don't have access to hospitals in these rural areas. And if we do, they don't have, ICUs, they don't have intensive care places to take care of the sickest folks. And so we have to expand Medicaid. By the way, the voters in 2020 said expand Medicaid. The Republicans turned around and refused to fund Medicaid. We're still fighting them. We have to fight our own representatives to do what we asked them to do. And so I think that's a big turning issue for a lot of people. When I knock doors and say, you voted for it, and they said no, that is infuriating to people. But expanding Medicaid would obviously help these rural places stay open. Also giving mothers access to the healthcare they need to deliver a healthy baby. By the way, Missouri is ranked very high in maternal mortality rates, especially for Black women. We're at 4 or 5 times the national rate for Black women. It's a crapshoot in this state to deliver a baby, and yet they are forcing people to deliver pregnancies that they can't afford or their body can't sustain.
Yes, there's a lot of problems in Missouri for sure with health. And then the last health and sexual health related question is the last session, there was an attempt to outlaw multiple methods of birth control in Missouri, including some really commonly used methods like IUDs, Plan B, and the birth control shot. How will you address this if elected and it's once again brought up?
Well, I would never vote for an abortion ban, and I would never try to make birth control illegal. That infuriated conservative women when they started coming after the IUD. And what they're doing is they're saying Medicaid won't pay for an IUD. So you're not going to pay for the poorest woman to have an IUD to keep her from getting pregnant. At the same time, you will not, give her any care while she's pregnant, or give that child any education, or take care of that child in any way, including SNAP. None of it makes any sense. And you can't wrap your mind around it other than knowing that people go down to Jeff City and they have no policy. By the way, this is why Republicans are doing this, because they have no policy. So it's guns and abortion over and over again, because they don't have anything to help the people of Missouri. So they get people, fired up over things like abortion. When it comes to, just like what Sheena said, it's privacy. It's also body autonomy. We don't have people born and then put them on a list to be a donor for their organs, even if it would sustain a child's life. No one is going around forcing people to give up a kidney, even if it would save a child's life. But that is exactly what they are doing to women. They are forcing us to use our bodies against our will in service to another, and that is not constitutional. And that's exactly a way that you can say it, especially in rural parts of America, where people are already there. We like to live away from people. We like to have our rights. We don't want anyone telling us what to do, but we're going to tell every woman in this state what to do. So that's the way, to fight back at that. But it's just infuriating. And I'm sure you can tell by the way that I speak on this, that I'm very passionate about it. And I'm angry about what's going on, just like every one of you are. And this is the perfect place to say what we need to say so we can do better. I have 2 daughters. I have 2 granddaughters, and they are going to fight the same fight my mother fought. And it's outrageous.
Then my last question is just kind of more general. It's unlikely that the state legislature will be any more favorable to Democrats next session with the supermajority and all. I don't see that going away. How will you work with Republicans to address healthcare issues?
I don't know how well I can work with Republicans for this one reason. I have a good friend who is a representative. She had a great bill. We can't get anything passed unless we have a Republican who will, take the bill on for us. She crossed the aisle. He said, yeah, it's great. I have no incentive to work with you. And that's what we're up against here. They have no incentive to do anything. So I'll tell you what I will do. People could vote for me because I'm not a rubber stamp, and because I'm loud, and because I will put you on blast the second you go after women or children or anybody else in this state. So maybe I am in the supermajority, but I'm going to stand up for every single person in this state, and I'll make sure that you know that what you're doing is wrong.
Awesome. Thank you. And then let's see. Does anybody else have questions for Jess?
There are a couple of questions that have come into the chat. Melissa had a question. So the new law is trying to stop women from crossing state lines to get a safe abortion. How do they get around the fact that you would be in a different state where that state's laws should kick in?
They haven't got around it, and I'm hopeful that they're not going to get around it. But the fact is, they're getting more and more extreme, and this is why they do it. They propose something that is so extreme that we go, no, 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 no. And we take a little less extreme, trying to bargain that out. So they keep pushing to the right because they put things out there that are just unacceptable to anybody, with the thought, and I know because I've heard this from them speaking, with the thought of they won't accept this, but they'll bargain for this. So we're losing rights anyway, even if these things don't pass.
Christy, did you have something you wanted to say?
Actually, I did. I just want to circle back to the people who are affected by these laws, and I'm just really concerned because I have a daughter who is autistic, who is pretty high functioning, and she's beautiful. But you know what? She has no social filters. And the biggest fear in the community that I am with parents is that autistic children are so victimized and they have no control over, not no control, but without birth control, without access to abortions. Many of them are forced to have children that they cannot take care of, and they have no idea the consequences of their actions, and they're being preyed upon often. So it's not just regular people, it's the very marginalized of us that are truly victimized by this.
I'm so sorry, Christy, and I completely understand. I have actually a couple of nephews who are on the spectrum, and I understand what you're saying about that. And you're so right talking about that these sort of laws impact the marginalized and the oppressed more than the rest of us. Because when they ban abortion in Missouri, if you're rich, who cares? Whatever. I'm getting on a flight and I'm going to wherever it's legal. Folks like me who live in a town of 480 people on the Iowa border are going to struggle finding a place. And by the time, if it's a teenager, by the time you get around to telling someone that this is what has happened, whether it was consensual or not, you're probably past the time where something could happen. Or you're going to go to one of those places where they offer you a free ultrasound and a package of diapers, and maybe they're looking for someone to adopt, the child that you're carrying because you're 16 or 17. So this affects, all of us, but especially those of us who live in areas that aren't, rural areas and urban areas are so similar, but to those of us who are marginalized and oppressed, yes, you're exactly right.
And just speaking of these fake abortion clinics, right? The most insidious thing is in St. Louis, next door to Planned Parenthood is one of those fake abortion clinics. It is literally next door.
We have a lot of people, we have a couple of newspapers up here and they tend to be pretty conservative. And we have a lot of folks that regularly champion this place, not knowing what it is. They just assume it's a place for, well, I don't know what they assume it is, but they are insidious. They do creep in. They do make especially young women feel a certain way and feel like that there is nothing else they can do but deliver a baby that they cannot afford to keep. And I want to say too, I hear a lot of conservative folks saying, what about abortion? Or what about adoption? I'm sorry. There are 13,000 kids in the system right now in the state of Missouri that have nowhere to go. And you want all of these young people to put more children into a system that can't sustain the 13,000 that are in there right now. Adoption is not, the opposite of abortion. And people need to know that.
All right. Let's see. Christy had asked if the state of Missouri doesn't have very many Democrats, or if it's more a fact that in addition to having not very many Democrats in office, is there just a feeling that nothing people will try will work? Is that why people seem to be just so disheartened?
I've read statistics that 40% of Missouri votes as Democrats, but they live in Kansas City, Columbia, and St. Louis. And so we have an imbalance of rural power, which is why folks like me, rural progressives, dirt road Democrats, need to stand up and start running. And that was a big decision for me in 2020 when I could not vote for any Democrat on the ticket. I was like, I'm done. If someone needs to do this, I guess it might as well be me. So it's not the fact that we don't have Democrats, it's that they are concentrated in blue areas, and in rural areas, a lot of people feel tamped down. They feel like they can't speak up for fear of retribution for their jobs. I know this is a fact. I put my Biden signs in, they were gone the next day. I mean, it's just how it is out here. But I will say that I have a great community. And once I speak to people, they understand that, I'm not some sort of devil living next door to them. I'm just a person like they are.
Yeah. So I just want to say I really like your phrasing of dirt road Democrat. I think that really emphasizes that progressive values can exist anywhere in this country, because when people talk about progressives, they really do think about cities and urban areas, not even the suburbs, right?
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you getting out here and talking about you as somebody who lives in a rural area. I mean, I've seen stuff on your Twitter. You live on a farm and it looks beautiful and peaceful, and that rural idyllic that everyone thinks of the Midwest, and you have progressive values. So I really appreciate that.
I think it's important for people to realize that my great grandparents were progressives. They were FDR Democrats. My grandpa was a miner in the 30s and was unionized. Progressive values are rural values. It's just that it's become this culture war that now it's more popular to be this way. But when you really talk to folks, progressives stand up for them. We have the same ideals. It's just that you have to talk to them, and you have to talk to so many that it makes it difficult. But this is a movement, and this is where people can go to find other people like them. And you just need a couple loud voices to say it's okay. We can say these things. We can have these beliefs. I care about my community. I want them to have paved roads. Like, these are things that people can get behind. Abortion is a fact of privacy and body autonomy. That's what it is. There's no reason to sit and talk to somebody about when life begins, because it's a non-starter. We can never agree. The Bible says one thing. By the way, it says at first breath. But beside that point, we all have different values and think different things. But in the end, you can't force somebody to do something against their will. And that's what it is.
So another thing, and I kind of got this from our book club book that we read, but then I'd also heard it from other sources. One issue that progressives sometimes face in rural areas, especially when trying to pass things, that when they approach them when they approach the issue and say, hey, do you want access to, Medicaid expansion so that your hospital stays open? And everyone resoundingly says yes. But when they try to pass progressive things and things that are, considered welfare or, state funded X, right? Then they run up on the issue of, well, I don't want to prop up the urban poor. How do you address that?
Well, I actually don't hear that very often, but I do hear people say, they talk about welfare queens or whatever. But in actuality, all of us can think of someone who is receiving some sort of benefit. And my sister, I'm not receiving any benefits, but my sister needs them. And so people understand that, especially in rural areas like mine, where poverty is a little higher. You can say, you're supporting this kid. You care about this kid. And when you make it personal like that, then obviously the problem in Missouri with progressive things is we do pass progressive ballot initiatives, Medicaid expansion, medical marijuana, and then we vote for Republican lawmakers who turn around and undo that. So we have to say, yes, this is a very nice man, and you've talked to him at ball games and such, but he voted down these things. So you have to connect the politician to this policy that he voted down. And we just have to get past the guns and abortion. And it's just easier just to address it right off the bat. I'm a gun owner. I also started a mom's demand group because I don't think everyone should have access to loaded guns. I'm a mother of 5 kids and 3 grandkids. I also believe that abortion is healthcare. So there are all these variables within all of us that people can respond to, and take that away from the Republicans. No more. You can't run on 2 issues. I'm going to make you run on a policy.
Well, thank you so very much, Jess, for coming in and explaining to everyone about the state of abortion access and healthcare access in Missouri. I'm going to turn this back over to Nessa.
Great job, Riley. Awesome, absolutely awesome job. Really phenomenal questions for Jess. Jess, we're going to touch back to you here in just a few moments. But we're going to take a break and we are going to watch a video. So give me just a moment and we'll give this a listen.
Holy cow, folks, treating an ectopic pregnancy is not performing an abortion, but one Republican lawmaker in Missouri thinks otherwise. Brian Sates of Missouri introduced House Bill 2810, which you can see here. It states that it would be a Class A felony, which could be a penalty of up to 30 years in prison if an abortion was performed on an ectopic pregnancy. An ectopic pregnancy is when a fertilized egg is implanted outside of the uterus, like the fallopian tube seen here. It is estimated that 1 to 2% of all pregnancies result in an ectopic pregnancy, and about 2.7% of pregnancy-related deaths are due to ruptured ectopic pregnancies. Ectopic pregnancies are not viable, and if left untreated can lead to death. Also, a developing baby cannot survive an ectopic pregnancy because it needs to be implanted in the uterus, which it's not. This bill cannot pass because it will cause undue harm on women.
Have you guys heard of this horrific new anti-abortion bill out of Missouri? Missouri House Bill 2810 would make abortion at 10 weeks a Class A felony. That means 10 to 30 years in prison. And believe it or not, it gets even worse than that. House Bill 2810 also criminalizes abortion for ectopic pregnancies. This is a pregnancy where the fertilized egg implants outside the uterus. It is non-viable, and there is no medical science or technology to change that. And it gets even worse. Ectopic pregnancies are so dangerous for women that they are the cause of 10% of all pregnancy-related deaths and the leading cause of death in the first trimester. So the Missouri GOP is giving women a choice to either die or spend 30 years in prison. The man, and yes, you knew it was a man, behind this bill is Representative Brian Sates. Unsurprisingly, he has no medical degree and no idea how the female body or any human body works. I'm calling on my fellow men specifically to reach out to this representative and condemn this bill in the strongest possible terms, especially if you're in Missouri or a constituent of this representative. This is the time to act. Let's get to work.
Hey Brian, hey friend, hey representative, OBGYN here. We do have this super awesome technology to know if something's an ectopic. It's called an ultrasound and blood work. And if you don't understand this basic fact, why is it that you get to make laws about things you don't understand? America, oh my God, I hate it here. Please, someone get this to Brian and let him know that today he wins the worst human award. But seriously though, this is disgusting.
What I'm about to show you is evil, and it just proves that the Missouri GOP is not for local control, they're for total control. Missouri lawmaker seeks to prohibit residents from obtaining abortions out of state. Mary Elizabeth Coleman is a representative running for state senate. She's an extremist. This is Mary Elizabeth Coleman a few years ago when the Missouri governor signed the abortion ban. She mocks all of us in her Handmaid's Tale dress. These lawmakers have tried to ban abortion in Missouri, even in the case of rape and incest. Now they're trying to stop women from crossing the state line to get abortion care. Mary Elizabeth Coleman is trying to punish women and girls who leave the state for an abortion. The Missouri GOP is not about local control. They're about total control. Another day in Missouri.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Ma'am, I'll be right back as soon as I get the results of your scan. Okay. Ma'am, were you aware that you're pregnant? Pregnant? Yes, and I'm very sorry, but this is an ectopic pregnancy. What does that mean? Is that why it hurts so bad? Yes, the fetus has implanted outside of your uterus, and based on these scans, you won't survive it. Well, if I won't survive it, then don't we have to terminate? I can't. Why not? It's illegal in this state for me to perform an abortion on an ectopic pregnancy. But you just said I can't survive this. Yes, but my hands are tied in this. This is a death sentence for you both. So what you're telling me is that Seitz, Coleman, Parson, and every other GOP legislator in the state of Missouri would rather kill a woman than provide her with medical care. That is exactly what will happen if we do not fight this. All right.
Wow. Right? Like just hits you right in the gut. So ladies, thank you, both of you, for being here tonight, Sheena and Jess. You both have been very moving and very passionate, and I just appreciate that. So Sheena, I want to circle back to you. So if you only had 2 minutes and you had to convince someone to support reproductive rights in the state of Texas and to stand up and fight, can you give me your elevator speech on what you would say to them?
Wow, this is a really good question. Yikes. Your mother, your sister, your daughter, your cousin, your coworker, someone you love needs to have health care. They need the rights, the options to be able to make the choices for their own bodies. Give them that right. You have those rights. Please consider everyone. This is not just about you. It's not just about one party. This is about us as humanity. The generations behind us will look and they will judge what we're doing in this moment. Be on the right side of history. Let's help all of us come together. We all deserve human rights. That would be my impassioned part. I will tell you, it's difficult to get there. It's difficult to get there. In my last minute, I'm just going to share with you guys just personally, I am heart to heart with Jess right now. This is such a horrific time that we're facing right now. The fear factor is working. It's working, and we have to combat that. We know that they're afraid. That's why they're doing such extreme measures. So I would just say, let's all continue to fight. Let's get the word out. Let's do our part, because it can get worse. As we're seeing, they are testing the water, and they are trying to get as extreme as they can in one place. And if that doesn't work, then they get a little bit more extreme over there. They're going to circle back. They're going to circle back and try and close up all the little openings that are still out there. We have to do something. And part of doing something is we have to run. Women, we have to run. We can run scared, but we have to run. Just do it anyway. I love Heather McGee's book that you guys are reading, The Sum of Us. It is all of us. It is all of us together in this fight. And we have to be about it together. And I love the partnership that we just had on this call. And I just want to continue that same synergy, that same effort of reaching across state lines to strategize, because that's what they're doing. They're using it from some organized groups that are nefarious. We're going to do it for good. And let's continue to work together.
Thank you so much for that, Sheena. Yeah, because they're not going to stop with reproductive rights. From here, they're going to move on to birth control, and then they're going to go after gay rights. They're going to go after every other right that we have in this country, and so it's so important. So Jess, I am going to throw the same question to you. If you were stuck in an elevator with someone and they were kind of in the middle and didn't really know which way like they should support, what is going to be that 2-minute elevator speech that would inspire someone to get behind women, to get behind, as Sheena said, their mothers, their sisters, and their daughters in the state of Missouri, and to fight for their reproductive freedoms in your state?
I would say that it doesn't even start with reproductive freedom. It starts with the fact that Missouri GOP does not see women as first-class citizens. They see us as less than. And I know this because they attack our reproductive freedom, but also Missouri is ranked second in the nation for women being killed by their intimate partners. We are high for maternal mortality rates. For every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 78.5 cents. They do not care about us. And now they're suddenly concerned about women's sports. We know that that's a targeted attack on trans folks. And so with every single thing they put forth, they are not addressing what women in this state need. We need, like I said, a living wage. We need to make sure that our children have somewhere to go when we go to work and that it's affordable. We need to make sure that we have health care, and we need to make sure that we have the right to decide what health care we need. So when we talk about abortion, it's connected to every single other issue that we have going on in this state, and they do not care about us, and they show it with every single bill that they write and they create and they try to pass. And this is just another attack, but it's an overall attack on women in this state. And that's why we need to stand up. Like Sheena said, we need to run. We need to have people in every single area of this state saying, I have had enough. And I'll tell you, they have had enough, because I live in a tiny town, like I said, of 480 people. There's a town next to me that has 3,000 people. I organized 20 women to stand at the stoplight in a town of 3,000 people with posters saying and demanding our reproductive rights. And if you have ever been scared in your life, you should be a rural woman standing at a stop sign in a town of 3,000 people with a sign. And they did it. And there's 20. And if there's 20, then I know there's 2,000. And so together, all of us can get together. We can get behind this, and we can change this, our states and our country eventually, by saying that, you know, we're here, we're not going away, and you're not going to take away our rights. And this is the way it's going to be from now on.
Well said, both of you. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and everything that you do for standing up and fighting for women. Let's take a deep breath. Let's listen to one last song, and then we are going to hear from Jess and Sheena one last time before we wrap up the event. So give me just one moment, and we will take a listen to this next song.
Wrapped herself around him like a tourniquet. Cold October night, she'd wear his leather jacket. Oh, now she's scared of taking a piss. Can't be sure she's positive. Made her an appointment, she was 2 months late. The car they borrowed broke down before they got out of state. Towed back into town, what a drag. She's feeling sick, he's feeling bad. Such is the miracle of life. The essence of family is to sacrifice. We could be done with it tonight. The neighborhood doctor says it's sanitized. Lay down on the hard, cold ground, crying such a soothing sound. Get cured with the coat hanger. Girl, you're in America now. Woke up in the morning in her cousin's bed. Something don't look right, septic infected in red. Hard forehead like a frying pan. From fever dreams of sweaty men. Lay down on the hard cold ground, crying such a soothing sound. Get cured with the cold hanger. Girl, you're in America now. Such is the miracle of life. The essence of love is to sacrifice. We could be done with it tonight. The neighborhood doctor says it's sanitized. Lay down on the hard, cold ground, crying such a soothing sound. Get cured with the coat hanger. Girl, you're in children of God.
That song is a hard, cold reality of what could be if we don't stop laws like these from passing, unfortunately. So, Sheena, Jess, you are both running for office. And I am so excited that Building Bridges for America has endorsed both of you. We are going to be having town halls with both of you. Jess, I know we're writing postcards for you currently. Sheena, I think postcards with you are coming soon. So our volunteers, by the way, our volunteers have written almost 11,000 postcards in like 14 weeks for our endorsed candidates. So I am so excited, and we can get the volunteers that are in the room that link so you can jump in and write postcards for our endorsed candidates. But Sheena, we'll start with you. So you are running for the Texas House. And I am just so impressed with today. This is my first chance to get to sit down and get to know you. And I just talk to everybody else about why the people in Texas, in your district, should show up and vote for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So again, this has been a fabulous forum for me as well. My district is actually 7 different cities. 7 different cities. So gerrymandering is real. It happens. So they are trying to take away and silence our voices in so many ways because they recognize the demographics in Texas are changing. Similar to what Jess mentioned, in Texas, in particular in my district, in my area of the state, we are under Republican control from top to bottom, every single elected office. And it has been that way for about the past 20, maybe a little over 20 years, actually. And as you know, all the way up to our governor. So the reason why people in Texas, in Anna, Melissa, Weston, Salina, Prosper, Frisco, and McKinney should vote for me is because I can remember those 7 cities first. Let's start with that. And then second, because I care about people. I care about the whole person, not just one part of that person. I care about every single thing that's going to impact them from start to finish. And they need help. People are hurting. We need to give them help. We need to meet them where they are, give them the resources that they have that are available, including rights, and stop trying to suppress them, stop trying to take away rights, stop trying to make it harder and more painful to live in this world. We live in America and we need to start acting like it. Texas is not alone on this journey to the bottom. There are other states that are racing there too. And Texas is trying to lead the way and we don't need to. I could go on and on. There's so many different things to think about and talk about, but let me just end with this. This topic was very important today. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you guys even bringing this up. We need more people to do the same. This is a hugely important topic. Every single woman needs to stand up and do something. We can and we will. Let's get it done.
Thank you so much for that, Sheena. I do have to give credit. Riley, who is my co-host tonight, was the one that brought this this happening in the state of Missouri to Building Bridges' attention, and we all rallied together. Immediately reached out to Sheena, immediately reached out to Jess, and both of you within minutes. Both of you said, yes, I am there. So thank you to Riley for bringing this to our attention. Thank you, Sheena, for being here so much. And Jess, I'm gonna pose the same question to you. You are running for the state house in Missouri, and I know it is an uphill battle. You Miss Dirt Road Democrat. So tell us why the people in your district should show up, vote for you, and bring you to the Missouri State House.
First of all, going behind Sheena every time is a tough act to follow. She's so elegant, and I'm just like, bam. But I really hope that people will consider me. I have had this question posed to me several times. What is the point of voting for a Democrat when you're in the supermajority? What can you do? And like I said earlier, I am there to fight for the people who have been marginalized and oppressed. I'm there to fight for rural folks and what we need. Our schools are going to 4 days a week because we can't afford to keep the lights on. Our teachers it's a revolving door. They make $31,000 a year. It's untenable. It is unsustainable. And until Democrats are elected, not even just to put through policies at this point, but to act as a buffer to what they're actively trying to harm our citizens with, nothing changes. Nothing gets better until we are there, until we are forcing their hand and saying, no more. You can do this no more. There are going to be checks and balances, and we are the people who are there to do that. And a lot of people will respond to that. So there are so many issues: schools, healthcare, abortion, guns, everything you can imagine. Keeping Missourians safe and healthy. I just want people to love our state and to look around and say, this is a great place to raise my kids and my grandkids. I want my kids and grandkids to stay in this state. And the way things are going right now, they are hightailing it out of here, especially my daughters. And I can't stand back anymore and do nothing. I was a teacher for 16 years. So I bring the experience of a teacher breaking things down for folks, and also just being there for people who need a voice and don't feel comfortable using their voice. So hopefully the people of my district will realize that when you pick a legislator, you pick in your fighter. And I think I'm the one that could do the job for them. And I appreciate this so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for both of you being here. Just the amount of passion that you both brought to the table tonight just inspires me so much. It makes me want to work so much harder for Democrats all across the nation. And I'm down here in Florida. So just thank you so much for all of you for being here. And volunteers, thank you so much for being here tonight, for writing these letters to elected leaders in the state of Missouri to try and convince them to change their minds. Thank you for the education, Sheena, about Texas and what's happening. Jess, thank you for fighting for Missouri. I look forward to seeing both of you at your town halls. Speaking of Games for Change town hall, tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. is our Games for Change town hall event, and we have the candidate running for mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, who is Terrence Ruth. He is going to be joining us for a live Q&A. It is going to be great. And then on Tuesday, we have part 2 of Facebook Activist Changemaker. And our veteran volunteers are going to teach you how to use Facebook to activate your group and to get them going and to get them motivated. On Wednesday, we have Lights, Camera, Action. We are going to watch Bessie, starring Queen Latifah. As we wrap up Women's History Month, we celebrated at movie night, and we're going to be writing postcards for 13 of our endorsed candidates. And then on Thursday, we have Civics for Everyone, or excuse me, Civics for Change. And our veteran volunteers, again, are going to teach you all about how to make civics work for you, how to contact your legislators, how to identify who your legislators are, because it sounds simple, but so many of us don't know where to begin. If we're angry about abortion, some people do not know who to write and how to write and what to say and what not to say. And so our volunteers are going to teach you that. So just thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I hope to see you guys at a future Building Bridges event. Jess, Sheena, I look forward to seeing both of you at your town halls that are coming up here soon. Everyone, just thank you. We appreciate you so much, because without volunteers, Building Bridges for America could not do what we do. So thank you so much for being here. Everyone, have a great night, and girl power. Good night.
Girl power. Thank you.